Today on New Game Spotlight, we're talking about a game called Sacrifice. Sacrifier is a modern JRPG-inspired game with a unique battle system, rich story, fantastic visuals, and music by Motoi Sakuraba. This game is being created by Pixelated Milk, developer of Regalia of Men and Monarchs and Warsaw, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Sacrifier is a mix of a 2D pixel art characters and 3D environments, creating a really cool and unique art style that is somewhat reminiscent of an HD 2D, but is still wholly its own thing. The devs say that Sacrifier is an upcoming RPG inspired by the 90s titles that began their love affair with gaming. For as long as they worked on Sacrifier, they've held on to one simple, ambitious concept: to take the best of the games they grew up with, including Vagrant Story and Xenogears, to combine the elements from those with contemporary storytelling and quality of life improvements in order to create an RPG experience that feels simultaneously nostalgic and modern. A Kickstarter was created in 2021, raising over 135,000 euros, which equates to, roughly like $144,000. So pretty similar, not too different. The amount raised hit 3 out of the 5 stretch goals, including a new weapon, a new class, and a mastery system. But it did miss out on CG cutscenes for the bigger moments and a DLC. The devs seem to be fairly active though, with the last update provided on February 10th of 2023, so just last month as of the recording of this video. And they are providing a backer video, which is for all those who backed them on Kickstarter, and this is the second time. The first time they did, they had feedback and then responded, and this is now the second demo that they're going to send out. It's supposed to come out anytime now in March, and again, they should come back after all of the feedback and be changing things that they noticed from that feedback. It's good to see them be that open and transparent with their backers. That they provided a little demo, we got the demo back. Some of that demo is what you're seeing on the screen. So we were lucky enough to get some of that footage, not from me, but someone else playing. From the feedback of that first demo, they made a bunch of changes, most of which they included into this next demo. And so we'll see what happens with that one. It is mid to late March already, so that demo needs to come out pretty soon, otherwise it's going to be, I suppose, delayed into April. Before digging into the different aspects of Sacrifice, let's talk a little bit more about Pixelated Milk and what we know of them to this point. Their first outing was Regalia of Men and Monarchs, which is a tactical RPG with some kind of city builder and relationship elements. The thing about that game that's important to note though is that the narrative is super strong. It has a good sense of humor. The animation was decent, the side stuff was pretty good. The combat though was actually really engaging. It had a good SRPG or strategy RPG combat style. Even had some difficulty style. Now, the scores, if you look up the reviews, are kind of all over the place. But essentially when you boil it down, it's swimming in sevens, right? That's right where it's at. I think overall Metacritic is like a 71. And I think that's about the right place for it. I think I probably would give it like a 7 to a 7.5 out of 10 if it was me. So that sounds about right. Now the next project that the developers took on changed quite a bit. It was a World War II with a strategic turn-based affair in the game called Warsaw. But you got to think kind of, almost Darkest Dungeon, but World War II themed instead of the fantasy. And that game sits a lot closer to home for them, as the developer team is based out of Poland, which is where Warsaw is located. It's the capital there. This outing, the team went for a story that was based on real events. The critics were once again kind of split on this one, and it seems like once again it was swimming in sevens. I haven't played this one. I just don't care about World War II and that kind of thing. It just kind of shows what the team is up to and what they're capable of. Again though, my understanding from, if you read the reviews on Warsaw, The narrative seems to be pretty strong, and the combat was pretty strong. Some of the other stuff was not as good, and it didn't quite pull together as they wanted. So those are just kind of some notes on developer going forward. Hopefully they've learned and have grown and are better now. We'll see. So let's talk about the story. What do we know about the story so far? Well, from their Kickstarter, it says that Sacrifier tells a story of Ezekiel Ryden, a young soldier trained to join an elite sect of the Church of Shale. Ezekiel longs to do his part keeping the underground city of Antioch safe from the demons which roam the surface above, but little suspects the role he is soon to play in a more profound struggle, a struggle thousands of years in the making, waged between entities far beyond his understanding. Ezekiel's adventure will lead him to places he would never have imagined and will uncover secrets which cause him to question everything he believes. Okay, so that's kind of a cool premise. I like the idea that you start as a character already in a strong position, not the typical zero to hero that so many stories tell. Now, don't get me wrong, I love those stories, but I like that it's doing something a little different. We do know that you will get companions along the way, and each have their own kind of issues and concerns in the world. There is the natural world, which Ezekiel's from, and that's Antioch and this main town, it seems. It does seem at some point, I would assume you're going to leave that town and explore kind of the rest of the world, but we'll see how that works. Antioch is underground, where most towns are, because the demons have overrun the surface world. Apparently they lived down there so long that most people don't even remember a world with an open sky or vast oceans, of lush forests or towering mountains, of immeasurable desert sands or cascading waterfalls pouring into a sea of stars. The stories of the lands above have lived for so long, they've been relegated to myth. It kind of reminds me of Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne talking about in their ship from the Matrix, right? But unlike the boys from the Nebuchadnezzar, Sacrifice also features the idyllic spirit paradise of Erebus. You will travel back and forth between kind of the living world, or human world if you will, and Erebus. How much and how the two worlds affect each other, we don't fully know, but there is no connections. They talk about you might have to go to Erebus to solve a puzzle to fix something in the real world, and vice versa. So there is going to be interplay there. And the way Erebus is set up, it seems that it has the potential to lead to some pretty impactful moments. There is a split second in a trailer where it looks like your companion is talking to his mom, who obviously passed on from kind of the human realm, and now it almost sounds like she's ready to move on from Erebus. Oh, maybe like there's a, like you jump in it, like in Greek mythology, how you start in one area and you can go down the river to kind of be done, right, to end everything. And so we'll see, like how do they use this kind of area of the afterlife, and what kind of moments you can have with that. I think if they handle it well, it could be pretty emotional and impactful, but we'll have to see. The themes obviously from that could be pretty heavy, depending on how they choose to use it. But the theme of death and loss and how the living deal with that it just seems primed to be used in this. But we'll see. What I will say is their narratives so far have proven fairly strong over the first two releases. So I do have faith that they're going to deliver a good one. What direction they take and how they provide that, we'll see. The devs also said that their aim is to get the entire game voiced. Well, as an old school JRPG fan, I don't care as much about that. I'm used to reading scripts, and I still sometimes choose to play games in Japanese and read it because it's faster. It does tend to pull a narrative together when you have voice acting. And it does keep it tighter, usually for more people. Now, that's not always the case. There's obviously examples of ones that have done that wrong. But as a whole, I do think it tends to draw that together. So we'll have to see. Hopefully that works out for them. Hopefully they're able to make that work. But yeah. Now, the lore of Sacrifier runs pretty deep. If you start reading in on a Kickstarter and digging into the things that they talk about, you can find just this whole deep lore of Erebus and how it interacts, to Antioch and why the people are living underground. They have what they call the myth of the Four. They have the Hellgate, which is what is somehow standing between the demons on the surface and the people underneath. Sacrifier is in no shortage of world building. There's tons that I want to dig into. I want to know about these underground cities. How are they living? Where do they get their water? How have they been living there for that long? And why did the demons come? How did the demons come in the first place? And how do you fight them off, right? How is this Hellgate stopping them? There's so much to look into. I really hope that they deliver on that. It would be really lame if they kind of set up this whole world and you don't get to find out a lot of it. We'll just have to wait and see though. As the developer said, they're kind of pulling from the games of the 90s, which is games that I grew up with as well. And so of course there are going to be other characters that join in the journey, like we mentioned earlier. Ezekiel is the main protagonist, but the devs have already outlined at least 5 others, including 2, I guess, friends or co-workers or something from the Church of Shale that Ezekiel works for. There's this kind of clueless noble girl, a silent heretic is what they call him, and he apparently, at least I'm assuming it's a him, I don't actually know that, it's hard to tell. The design looks male, but that doesn't mean anything in this kind of game, I guess. But they call it the silent heretic who follows an outlawed religion. So I mean, there's some more lore and possibly kind of political intrigue kind of stuff in there, so that could be really cool. And they have this other girl, I suppose, and you don't really know what she is. She might be a demon, she might be something else, you don't really know. If you read on their Kickstarter, they even allude to that, right? Saying, is she a demon? You don't know. Is she something else? You're not sure. I don't know. So that's kind of fun. Who knows, they might have more than that. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the developers say a couple of times on the Kickstarter that they're gonna have things that they don't share on there because they want it to be a surprise. So very, very possible that you get more people than that. Now, from the story and lore to the combat system. The devs mentioned taking inspiration from a variety of sources, including classic titles like Vagrant Story, which they actually mentioned several times, especially in talking about combat. Now, they say they've taken those classic titles, Regalia, and mixed in a bunch of their own ideas to make kind of a giant pot of combat soup. And they've come up with this system that is supposedly both turn-based and real-time. Now, when I hear that, I tend to think of like Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is probably the best mix of those two that I can think of. But you watch trailers, little videos on the Kickstarter, and then the video of the demo, and you'll see it's something a little bit different. But just remember, the demo is a demo, and it's an early build. So it could change. It could be totally different. I don't think it's gonna be totally different. It might have tweaks though, so we'll see. But it looks like maybe old Tales of Combat, where when you run into an enemy on the world map, you kind of get transported to a combat zone. And you and the enemies run freely in the zone. The enemies attack in real time. When you go to attack, everything freezes. You pick from kind of weapons, items, and skills, and that determines your range. So how many you're gonna hit. And I think some of that is depending on the weapon, whether it's a single or multi-hit. I'm not sure, but that's what it looks like. From there, you attempt to execute a combo by hitting the buttons in rhythm. Now, I don't know if hitting them in rhythm just means the right order, or if there's a sense of timing here. I can't pick that up from the trailers and stuff, so we'll have to see. But there also is pickups on the battle. Some are just giving HP, kind of like little healing items. Others are helping to fill a gauge. Now that gauge seems to be your available action points that you use when you go into the turn-based battle portion. The devs talk about the need to change up your strategy with item and skill use regularly, and that you won't be able to just use your powerful moves over and over again. I do appreciate that. I think it's important that you don't just spam a move all the time, because otherwise combat just is super boring. They have an affinity system, which they say is based on a system from Vagrant Story, and that kind of serves to push the player toward enemy weaknesses, forcing the player to use different weapons, skills, and items to defeat their opponent, which I guess, kind of mentioned earlier. It sounds like that if you're able to figure out the enemy's weaknesses in each category and use the right grouping, you should be able to one-shot enemies. Now, I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute, but this kind of gives the game a sense of discovery and a reward for taking the time to uncover the weak spots instead of just pounding away. Now, watching the demo, it seems that utilizing the weakness is going to be key. When the player uses other attacks, the damage output was paltry, but the attacks on the enemy weaknesses did considerably more. The one-shot mechanic seems to be an attack that you can put together while on the main map, and if you hit him with it before running into him, it just straight destroys him then and there without going into the combat arena. I like that. That's pretty cool. I like the idea that if I learn the enemies well enough, that when I see them on the world, if I hit them with the right combination or whatever, that I get to skip the combat encounter. I personally, now everyone's a little different, I personally am always about speed. It's not about how long the game is. The game can be 40, 50, 60, 100 hours long, but I want it to feel quick. I want to move fast. I want combat to be fast. I want to be able to speed through things. Even if they take a long time, I just like the feeling of moving, of getting things done at a rapid pace. Not everyone's gonna be like that, but that is how I like to play games. The option to learn and speed things up is very appealing to me. So we'll see how that works in the final build, but I hope that they keep that. As far as weapons are concerned, you have what they call, I think I pronounced this right, Devos gauntlets. And these kind of serve almost like a hub or an origin for your weapons. These gauntlets can change into multiple different types as you progress through the game, and I'm assuming you have to unlock them in dungeons or something. Somehow you unlock these different weapons. As of right now, we know about swords, spears, shotgun, crossbows, fists, and hammers. But the devs have hinted that there might very well be more. The Kickstarter also mentions a Monster Hunter-like mechanic where you can target specific parts of an enemy to hit weak spots and inflict permanent impairment. Apparently this mechanic comes with a kind of a risk-reward system where the more vulnerable spots will do more damage, but also open you to a possible counter-attack. The devs even hint at a possible limit break type mechanic. That all sounds like a pretty darn engaging combat to me. It looks fun already, and assuming that they're just fixing stuff up, that I expect this to be quite a bit better by final build from what you see in kind of this demo footage. But it already looks fun to me. So I'm really excited about this one. I really hope that this comes through. Yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. So let's move on from combat. There is a sense of some platforming elements, which I wasn't expecting when I first heard about this, but I guess it kind of makes sense. You can see in the demo in this particular like foresty area where he's running in almost like a 2D action platformer Metroidvania style map, where it's just left to right and up and down, but not in and out, right? There's no Z axis, just X and Y. And he's running, jumping, going ledge to ledge, right? So there's some kind of platforming. The devs also did talk about wanting it to feel more, interactive. And so that's part of it. You're running, they're jumping, they're opening new pathways, they're fighting enemies that they run into. One of them, you even see that one-shot mechanic or the full combat. Now, hopefully the platform is done well. The demo build makes it look pretty good. It doesn't look too floaty. The double jump seems tooled just right, but that's really hard to tell from watching. You really have to feel out platforming, right? Because even if it looks cool but it doesn't feel good, if it feels floaty or if it feels too heavy, it just messes the whole thing up. So we'll see, but you are supposed to be able to climb and interact with the environment in multiple ways, but hopefully it's good. One of the things that gets me the most excited about games, both now and probably as long as I can remember, is a really good job system. I love job systems. Final Fantasy Tactics has the best one, and I still love it to this day. If they get that remaster out, you better believe your boy is playing. In Sacrifier, they have what they call virtues, which are essentially jobs. Virtues affect your weapon abilities, combat styles, your stats, I'm assuming. I guess I don't know that for sure, but I'm assuming it's going to, because they do talk about each one having their own skill tree that you use what they call spirit points to unlock the different nodes or whatever it'll look like, but that'll get you skills, passive abilities, and active abilities. They did reach the stretch goal to add another virtue. So to my knowledge, as of right now, there's 6. We don't know that for sure. There could be a lot more. Hopefully, there's a lot more. I love it when they have a lot. But along with the job system, you'll be able to upgrade your weapons. But the upgrades are more than just a stat buff. They can be used to tailor your weapons to specific affinities and abilities that augment your playstyle more specifically. Now, I like that idea, right? I want to be able to make a build. I love that style, right? I hope that by learning the job system, you might be able to carry over some of that stuff, right? Like if I get passive abilities from a tank, that I can bring them over to a more, dex build and have extra defense or life or something. Or be able to use, like a tank attack or a shield pass or something, I don't know. But I hope that there's some of that interplay. It doesn't have to be the whole thing like Tactics does. I hope there's some kind of back and forth. Even if it's, you up your stats while you're that job. And so you can, buff your HP and defense by playing kind of the tank character and then move to a dex build and up your speed. I don't know, but I hope there's some of that. I just think that makes it way more engaging, but we'll see. Now, one of the most exciting aspects of Sacrifier is its audio and music. The composer, specifically, Motoi Sakuraba, is the composer here. And you maybe don't know his name, but if you do, you'll know he's from things like the Tales of games, Star Ocean, and Dark Souls. It's a lot of Bandai there. But the music in those games is top notch, right? Whether you like Tales of games or not, or Star Ocean games or not, those can be kind of hit or miss, but the music is really good. Dark Souls has really atmospheric music. So I don't really have any doubt that this is going to be a really awesome OST. That's exciting, right? Every good JRPG needs a really good OST. The Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy, all of those games, especially the 90s that they keep talking about, man, the score from those games is so good. So here's hoping, but having this guy do their music is a win for them. I think it's gonna be good. Unfortunately, we only know that Sacrifier is slated to come out for PC in 2023, with console releases to come afterwards. We don't have a solid date, and again, they're supposed to be having a backup demo that comes out anytime now, and I imagine we'll get a release date trailer a few months after that, after they've had time to make adjustments from the feedback. So I would guess, this is just me guessing, right? But I would guess a fairly late fall or maybe an early winter release if it makes this year at all. I wouldn't be surprised if they get a lot of change feedback from the demo if it doesn't come out till early 2024. It doesn't have a hard release date already, so it wouldn't really feel like a big delay if it got hit into next year. Hopefully it doesn't though. I do hope that it comes out this year. Again, if it does, I would guess somewhere between September to November. That would be my guess. But we'll see. Hopefully we'll find out in the near future. Okay, if you are interested in Sacrifier, if this game looks good to you, make sure you go and wishlist it. It is on Steam right now. You can wishlist it. I don't know if it's on other platforms like Epic and stuff. If it is wishlisted on there too, okay? Wish listing a game is one of the best ways to help out an indie dev team. So make sure any of these kind of indie games that you see that you're interested in, just throw it on the wish list. Even if you can't get it till it's on sale or something, it just really helps the developers to show interest in their game. So make sure you do that. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit that like button. It helps me out a lot and means a lot to me, so, do that. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Then you'll be the first one to know when the next video drops. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Have a good one.